generated a certain amount of discussion as to what's relevant, what you really want to know, what information you're likely to get or not. So let's just briefly kind of share what your thinking was and where you got to.
Their full life story. And then you actually don't have time for the ATM, you see. So it's great.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So did you guys decide you wanted them to fill in anything, or were you just going to chat?
I think it was my general vibe of the conversation was that we don't really need that much information from them formally written down other than contact details. And there were differing opinions between us whether how much we actually wanted to know even in conversation about, it was about whether asking these questions about them is going to somehow make us consciously or unconsciously start making judgments or assumptions about them before we start working with them.
However, it was in the context of an ATM class, so I hope that it wasn't an FI. And we also talked about our own experiences, and most people in the group go to ATM classes where the teacher already knows the students in the class anyway, because they do see them for FIs or they've been going for years. So they already kind of know that person. So
okay, and that's what happens in some instances. It probably won't happen with you initially because you haven't got FI clients yet, or not terribly many anyway. Okay.
So I think we were the same.
Right.
And then, you know me, kind of thinking about everything that could go wrong. I wondered, in the context of your professional indemnity insurance, if something was to happen where there was a claim, how much information you would have been expected to collect and know about the person if, as part of what they would call your due diligence as a practitioner. So, that was all. Cool. I don't know how relevant that is to ATM, but I had my ideal form, but as Helen pointed out, it's probably a bit of overkill, and how would you collect that information if you had people coming in and trying to sort of start a class at the same time? So that was all. Anybody else want to add?
No.
Okay.
Did you say diligence as a
due diligence? So if you've got insurance, and your insurer expects to see that you've done a minimum kind of inquiry as to the information that you've got from them, or depending on the type of insurance that you've got.
Yeah, so whether what you're offering is safe or appropriate for a person in this situation.
So if you had someone that came to you and you gave, I'm going to say FI, and something happened, or they accused you of doing something, and then that went to your insurer came back and said to you, well, what did you find out about them? Did you know about this? And so you can say, well, no, I didn't know, but did you ask the question? And so...
Have you got any idea what the insurance company would expect?
No, I don't actually, and that would be a good question for us to ask them.
Because I know from my own experience, just as a bookkeeper, that they... a certain information that should contain particularly around events that happened that are unusual.
Yeah, so who actually attended the class that day may in fact be one of the basic things we need to record, so that if a person says, I was injured in that class, you can look and say, no, you weren't even there.
Be a professional indemnity insurance could be a public liability where someone trips down the stairs on their way out. Or somebody has a car accident on the way home and because you've done a whole heap of stuff around the eyes. And did you
Absolutely. So thank you, Sue. It would be good for us to actually ask the insurers if they have any requirements of us. Yep.
Well, we considered public liability and the indemnity thing. So we have 5 questions. Oh, well, first of all, we've got to get a name, mobile, and or your phone and email.
Yep.
And then, of course, we're business people first, so we wanted to find out how they found out about the class. Because we want to be able to make more money and do more marketing.
Good.
We wanted to know what attracted them to doing this class, or who recommended it. Then we wanted to know if, because we don't want to really take responsibility for somebody's knee injury or make them fully conscious of the fact that we're looking at the whole person. Do you have any health or mobility issues I need to know about? And then the more specific ones, can you get up and down off the floor, and do you snore?
Good.
That's really funny.
That's right.
Our group agreed on a minimalist of maybe a name and number.
Yep.
And then on top of that, some of us agreed about an email address. And personally, because we're in the situation where we're not doing FIs with people before an ATM, and if you want to teach ATMs before, personally, I would like to set it up that I would like to know who's coming to the class, that people don't just rock up, that maybe it's like contact or email or phone me to book in and have an informal conversation and check out maybe something around injuries. And, you know, we're talking about, have they done FLD before? And Jenny was prompting with some questions about, well, why would you even want to know that? And it's about more that self-care thing, because that's what we're also training people in. And one would hopefully assume, but you can't always assume, that if they've done FLD for a while, they would have some idea about that, you know, how much you need to set that up in the class and make sure that's really attended to. And maybe access issues, you know, depending on the venue you've got, making sure that people can, you know, if someone might come who's got a mobility issue but might not be able to access a venue with stairs or something. But you're not really recording much. I was thinking more like having that conversation informally and seeing where it leads with a person before.
Yep.
Rather than an actual form. But I might record basics somewhere.
Yep. Okay, we've got another group.
Oh, and also we discussed about maybe at a class is having some some FLD brochures, whether it's Guild brochures or our own, to give out to people to take. So if, you know, people go, what have you gone to? And they can give someone a brochure or have more information about it to understand it a little bit more. And it's also a way of, I guess, promoting it if they want to give it out to friends and stuff as well.
What a good idea.
Bring a friend and you'll be free.
Yeah.
That might be something you want to think about, is having a bring a friend day. Like at Kinder, they have Grandparents' Day.
Yeah.
Watch. We've got a lot of
we did. So I won't go through all of them because some of them have been mentioned, the name, email, whatever.
Yep.
So the things that possibly haven't been picked out that we talked about, apart from not having much information at all, and then we went to town and got a lot of information.
Yep.
Their language spoken at home, give you some sort of cultural insight. Any injuries, surgery, if they have any limitations, physical limitations, what their physical activity is, what their hobbies are. You know, do you want to know that they're painting and sitting all day or whatever it happens to be? Are you pregnant? The level of FLD experience, where did you hear from us? Have you got private health insurance? And do you have any, and what are your expectations from taking the class? And please wear comfortable clothing when you come to roll around the mat. Pants, not skirts.
Cool. Okay, that's all the groups. Okay, so there's not a clear definitive answer, and there is some research that would be good for us to do in terms of insurance. Sometimes people just appear at the class. Somebody brings a friend, or if you teach in a community centre or a gym or some of the more kind of public venues, people rock in and you don't often have a lot of time to talk to them. On Friday, some people that you don't know will arrive. We probably won't ask them to fill in a form. You don't really need to know their name and their phone number and email address, but obviously it would be good to have a name. Is there one or two things that you would really like to ask them before you start teaching them? How much conversation will it be important that you have with these people? Can you hear?
I would like to know whether they've done Feldy or not.
Sorry?
I would like to know if they've done much Feldenkrais or not, ATM.
Okay, so what question would you ask?
Have you ever done an ATM before?
Yep.
And if you have, tell me something about it.
Okay, that's a nice kind of open question that might give you a sense of whether they think it's a gym class or a philosophy class or something about learning or whatever.
I think pain, like have they got any pain or injury is quite important to know.
What would you do with that information?
Keep an extra eye, well, not an extra eye, a little bit more of an eye on them.
Yep.
Just to make sure that they really are looking after themselves. Obviously, it just helps if they haven't heard of ATMs or Feldenkrais before. Like literally, there's some people that cannot kneel, like maybe they will after. But
okay, so that's a different question than have you got a pain or an injury?
Well, a limitation on any movement or position or whatever.
So maybe that's more important depending on the lesson you're going to give.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else? What else might you want in the few minutes that you are chatting with this person on Friday?
Being Box Hill, if there's local people coming, I would really want to know what their level of English understanding is.
Okay.
And that can be done in conversation. You don't have to ask them how good your English.
So you just want enough time to have a bit of a chat?
Yes, yeah.
Cool. Okay, I must say we don't often get a lot of Box Hill locals coming, but that's...
I'm going to try and get my landlady, and she's as Chinese as they come.
Cool. Excellent. Emma, you had a... Whoops.
I probably wouldn't ask many questions at all because, as you said, I'm probably not going to use that information for much. I'd much prefer to use the time before the lesson to embed some of the principles in their head so they're in the right mindset.
Welcome. Now, I just want to tell you about the Feldenkrais.
I wouldn't do it like that, but
no, you wouldn't.
Like, I guess I don't really think that in an ATM you're going to be using that. I'd prefer
What do you need to know about them? Does anything about their history or their interests matter? Or are they just here as a volunteer? And
maybe not on a one-off class. I mean, I definitely build relationships with people that would be coming on a regular basis, but one-off, like you want to give them an experience. So really what I would be thinking about is what I can do to give them the best experience possible in Feldenkrais,
yep.
And that's to put them in the right mindset to have the lesson. And you can just give them little, some of the little principles to think about as they're doing the lesson.
Okay, so you don't need anything about them to make a connection with?
No, because I mean, we already know what lesson we're doing. Yep. It's not like I can go, Emma's coming, she's got a hip problem, I'm going to do a whole thing on hips.
Right.
Like, we're set with our ATM lesson.
Yep.
And it's actually how we give that lesson that's going to provide the tools for them for self-use what language we use to help them like get there.
Okay.
So
cool.
I don't know. That's just me. And maybe they want to know where the toilets are. So there you go. Okay.
Right.
I'd probably like to connect with them. And by that, it might be asking a simple question about themselves or what brought you here. It's more to have a connection with that person and have them feel more relaxed and with me and finding a little bit about how they see the world. Maybe but it's not, I don't think a lot of information is required. Just a connection so that there's something between us.
Cool. Okay, someone else? Let them talk. It certainly is. Yeah. Sure. Okay, so sometimes they'll volunteer information. Yep.
Because it's a group, there are some kind of connections you can't do with the group individually. You must maybe ask general question individually. The other answer you. For example, how many of you already have the experience to this kind of classes, and you see who has experience and who doesn't, because if it became too personal, maybe you spend a lot of time talking or the people talking, and it takes valuable time that you are losing from your 50-minute class. And maybe this kind of general questions with yes, I did or not, things like that. And then in an NFI situation, maybe yes, maybe more.
Sure.
In a second, do this connection with the other, or your hip, or your arm, or whatever. Or maybe there is something that I need to know. It's important. Someone of you have a serious problem or whatever.
Yep.
I need to know, and just be very superficial in that.
Any other thoughts on that?
I keep changing my mind what to ask people as people say it, because it's almost like if you ask people, some people might feel inadequate if they haven't done it and the group knows they haven't done it, or that some people are more experienced, or that if you know someone's a yoga person, you have this particular perception of what they might be like, but they might not be like that. It's kind of interesting.
It is,
like,
isn't it?
It might be informative, but it might actually create stereotypes or biases that we already have. And it's interesting whether you let people present on the floor and see what comes out physically. I don't know, I'm just putting it out there.
Yeah, they're really important and kind of relevant observations. How much is it useful to know? What will you do with the information? And what would you do differently if you didn't have that information?
I keep thinking, like the yoga class I go to, like most people show up 10 minutes early or whatever, and we'll go lay there and stick our legs up the wall or whatever like that. So, I mean, if you've got something where you have run a few classes, people probably would come earlier and just lay on the mat like half of us do and just settle into that space. So, you know, if you put it out there to people to show up a few minutes early, then the new people that come in, you have got those few minutes to have a little bit of a chat to them, and maybe even if, you know, leave them be for the first class, and if they come back again, then ask them, you know, then do the forms or whatever, I don't know.
Now I'll get to know.
Just let them trial it on their own accord kind of thing.
I'm thinking of my own classes when it's a yoga class going on and someone new arrive and I have 5 minutes before the class. First the name, that's the thing that I ask, and then if they have any injury, that is the first thing important for me to address, because in the middle of the lesson happened one day, I didn't know that, but the lady was pregnant, and then she told me in the middle of the lesson, I'm pregnant. I didn't know that, so I'm asking not if you're pregnant or not, but I'm asking specific things before we start, like injury, and if she feel or he feels if got any limitation, never push, never ever push the limits. And I'm not saying doing and everything we do and doing with effort, without effort, but I say keep in the range of comfort, whatever you do here. And what's your shift on your weight? No, that's from today. No, but really, these three things: injuries, name, and not push yourself.
Okay. Just over here.
It was actually what can practitioners tell us. I imagine that with people coming into a class, they would be wanting to come and ask questions, and you'd be inundated with questions anyway, and then you'd sort of pick or answer the pool of questions one by one, and everyone would hear. Hopefully, if they all came in together. But I mean, I know you can't rely on that being asked, but that's another way of being, of starting the relationship. That some of that will happen, won't it?
It will.
And it may be the beginning of the relationship where you're asked questions and then you can expand on those, generalise.
Indeed. Was there one more?
I was just thinking a little further about what Anna was saying about wanting to establish that connection at the start of it. And I think particularly if it's someone who's not been to a Feldy class before or is going to an established class and they're someone new, that there is this kind of there's a sense of vulnerability walking into a space with someone you don't know, doing something completely new, and that we might not be asking information or asking a question in order for us to gather information, but that it's a really important setup point for that person to feel a little bit connected to feel a bit, that little bit more safe going into the class, that they can relax and, being kind of easing into that transition of class.
Yeah, that's really nice to think about that. So, one more little thing.
I was just going to say with that though, no, it's really up to, it's not necessarily what you ask, it's how your body language might be. All it needs to say is, I'm accessible if you want to talk to me. And I think that's the main thing, because I know I've been to classes where the instructor, when you walk in sitting on their phone, doesn't even look at you, compared to somebody who will actually just say hello to you as you walk in the door. So I think it's just, you're either open or you're closed. So,
okay, so last one.
Really borrowing on the class that I've been to, and if someone new was to come into the class, when everybody was sitting on the floor, just quickly going around the room saying, my name's Sue, I live here, and this is my experience of Feldenkrais, just as a kind of a way to bring the person into the group and get that connection, so they're not feeling, and without rambling on for hours and hours about what it is, each person just saying what Feldenkrais is, just one small thing that's been important to them.
Cool. So in the wee small hours of the night, when you wake up in that half dreaming, half waking state, and you discover yourself handling that moment when someone new comes into your class elegantly and effortlessly, and in a way that's delightfully satisfying to both of you, wake up and capture it. Okay.